Welcome back to the Origin Series August edition. This time it's myself, Des, and the boy X-Scoundrel bringing you Group A. A big game coming in from this one, X. It's No Team, No Talent coming up against Team Kaizo. Rosters on your screen. Of course, all No Team, No Talent being highly victorious in the previous couple of fixtures. X-Scoundrel, but is this the time for Kaizo to cause a bit of an upset?
I think, as has always been said about Kaizo, their strong side is their jungle top. Their mid and bot side are okay, but they are not as strong as both Andre and Acolyte in the top side of the map. Andre and Acolyte came from a previous mobile MOBA. They have plenty of experience between them. However, you're going into Doom and Leon, two of the strongest, jungle and top lane players in the game. So I think, unfortunately, No Team, No Talent, they meet the strength of Team Kaizo in the top side, and they excel at the rest of the map as well. And that's where I think really the issues come in for Team Kaizo. So it'll be interesting to see how this Gator series plays out. I expect No Team, No Talent to come in as the clear favourites, but Kaizo have upset before, and they could do it again.
Well, let's see if the favourites can get together an ideal roster. It is time for pick and ban, so let's see what the vetoes look like and what these two teams are going to embark into game one of this best of three series. And my mouth has been cut off, so I'm going to do a little bit of live camera editing. How's that? There you go. You can actually see me again.
Actual professional over here. Okay, so
talk to me about the bans.
Varus is, I think, most high elo AD carries consider Varus to be the most broken AD carry in the game right now, despite the popularity of assassins. But some of the major assassins that generally Varus struggles with are getting banned out. Like you see the Camille often gets taken away, the Akali very frequently banned, and really that only leaves Zed, and Zed has some very specific matchups that really Zed works into. I like the Senna ban. Senna in isolation, outside of competitive, not the most amazing in the game, but in competitive, when you play a proper fasting Senna, very, very strong. And Xin Zhao, a big pick for pretty much any jungler right now, but Doom actually banning that against himself. Yeah, Doom banning against himself, which is interesting. And obviously the Ziggs ban, which you'll see, despite the 5 consecutive nerfs to Ziggs in a row, he is still very, very strong.
Just never going to get himself taken out of the meta. First pick being locked in by No Team, No Talent. A hark towards their successful pick that got them the win 3-1 in the finals last month as well. The Corki to kick things off. Do you think, Scoundrel, you said to me before the game, we're likely not going to see a triple AD carry setup, seeing the nerfs that have come through to, for example, Graves and a couple of mid lane AD carries as well?
Yeah, the Corki does surprise me, but I have been testing Corki over the past couple of weeks despite the nerfs, and he is still strong. End of the day, they increased Valkyrie's cooldown by 2 seconds, and who really cares? Because it was already like 22 seconds. So another 2 seconds on that really isn't going to make a big deal to Corki's overall playstyle. But look at this, though. No Team, No Talent. They lock in Kha'Zix for Doom, absolutely Lee Sin for Leon on the top side.
Yeah.
And it is Seraphine Sona. Now, I would not be surprised to see Seraphine Sona bot, and you actually have Corki mid for Snitch. That's often something that gets overlooked here for a lot of teams, that Seraphine gets taken away again because she shines much more heavily in competitive than she does in a solo queue environment. That looks like a nasty team fight comp for No Team, No Talent.
It looks horrific just seeing that bot lane already. I hate it every single time I see it more and more, but the Pantheon has become really popular, at least so far in these finals, being picked up in the jungle. So you're going to see most likely that Gragas going up into maybe the mid lane. I want to say the mid lane, but I did this yesterday, and then we saw Camille Fiora mid lane. So I'm at this point very hesitant to commit to saying where these picks go.
If you've been watching Southeast Asia, you'll have seen Fiora jungle quite a bit as well. Don't get me wrong, Fiora jungle is kind of bad. However, if you're an aggressive jungler that likes to look for dueling and skirmishes, she kind of out skirmishes most other junglers in the game. But as you're right, I think Team Kaizo, there's quite a lot of flexibility with that team comp. However, I think the core crux of it is that you need to land an absolutely huge wombo combo with Galio to come out on top of these team fights. The one thing that I think they have going over No Team, No Talent is if No Team, No Talent make a mistake and this goes even, there are much beefier frontliners. There's much more damage absorption there for Team Kaizo, and everyone on No Team, No Talent will go down in an instant. They are like paper.
I just love how it's like, you get a flex pick, we get a flex pick, everyone gets a flex pick. I'd love to see if there is something spicy coming in this game like we saw yesterday, because it did make things really interesting, seeing the Camille in the mid lane followed up by the Fiora in the following game. Now, not sure we're going to see that here. Group A maybe a little bit more on the line, should we say, what you might see on League PC. Time will remain on that front. We'll be jumping into game in just a moment. This series, one I think many are excited for, because Kaizo are in a position where if No Team No Talent lose their first 2 games, they're done. They're not going to be the ones finishing in first place. Kaizo would take that spot, and then No Team No Talent will find themselves slightly lower down the seeding, down into 2nd or 3rd.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think this is an important series all the way through. And I think also it's worth noting that I've played against Memorize quite a lot in solo queue. He's been spamming Gragas support, so would not be surprised to see a heavy engage Gragas support in the bot lane. You can flash body slam, engage onto a Sona Seraphine combo, or even, you know, a Corki plus one of those two. It'll be Sona, it won't be Seraphine. Seraphine support sucks. But, you know, it will be, you know, a flash engage maybe from Gragas there. Memorized has been putting hours into that champion. And so I think maybe that's where we see the Gragas gets flexed down to.
It's the combo pick as well, right? Looking at the Pantheon, the Gragas together, the isolation capabilities like we saw out of a couple of teams yesterday, just bringing along all the stuns, piling in onto the key target, normally a Varus on the other side, and just completely melting them from the field. It does give them that single target lockdown, but the issue I've got, you focus on someone like the Seraphine, guess what? There's a Sona right there. There's shields coming through, there's stuns being laid on top, and when she's done being stunned, the Seraphine in the front line, there's an ult to follow immediately on top of that, and more shields, more everything, just to frustrate the living hell out of you. So maybe it's quite a smart play by the side of No Team No Talent to deal with that potential engage and catch.
Well, you have unbelievable sustain and, as you said, shielding in this comp, right? And that's the point of the scaling of this comp. So even though you have squishies, you should be able to at least kind of create this kind of faux health, like in terms of effective HP that you get through healing, and that's probably what we're going to see. But it does take quite a few items to get there. However, Staff of Flowing Water combination between Sona and Seraphine is quite disgusting right now, and I would not be surprised if that double item picked up as first, straight into Harmonic Echoes. If you get a heal, I get a heal, everybody gets a heal.
Everyone gets healed.
Legit. That could be the way that we see those two builds going. Going to be very interesting to see. But as I said before, any mistakes are made with this comp, the effective HP pool of your entire team is probably less than a full tank Gragas. So at the end of the day, you really don't have a huge amount of leeway with getting things wrong on the No Team No Talent side. If you let them get ahead early game, if they're able to consistently force fights versus you, you are going to struggle.
Absolutely. Well, the game is ready. No more struggling looking at our ugly mugs on the screen. Let's look at some real fiestas in the game itself. Game number 1 is ready. No Team, No Talent. Team Kaizo showing down in the August version of the Origin series. You got Leon, as we've already mentioned, going across onto playing that Lee Sin, something that he did play in the best of 5 grand finals of last month. Well, that's just a lie. In the prior month, we saw it. Last month, it was Graves the whole way through.
Yeah, and I did think we wouldn't see as much Graves this time round. He did get a couple of nerfs on the last patch, as well as some of his itemization nerfs have dropped too. I still think Graves is fine, by the way, but he's maybe just not at that level where he's able to take over matchups very early on anymore. Those early base stat nerfs to Graves were designed to kind of limit his early game power and allow him to scale a little bit more effectively into the game. And I think Graves was too strong at every stage in the game. And as we said, it is Memorized playing that Gragas support. The current lineup of the champions on your screen for Team Kaizo does not quite accurately reflect where they are. Memorized is down in the bot side of the map. We have that Pantheon jungle, as you said, has been relatively popular. Ruiz in the mid lane, so you can have that roaming capabilities on the Galio to help influence either side lane matchups, and of course that Fiora in the top for Acolyte.
Almost entire sense. This bot lane was the one that we were paying attention to. Now, sure, Gragas has got a little bit of range on him with that Q and the ability to go for a hard engage, but this early game is going to be brutal. Friend and Clue able to poke down a hell of a lot, and with no real sustain coming out from the Gragas on towards, say, the Kai'Sa, this could get pretty rough as the levels start building up.
I'm interested to see if they are sharing, if they're trying to share gold here, or are they just funneling it all into Friend? I would imagine it goes into Friend, yeah. And we did say, very likely to be this, and very annoying, very difficult to deal with bot lane combo. We haven't engaged, though.
Oh, yeah, and the Ignite coming out as well, but in comes Doom from the side as well. Andre bringing out the ETH to try and block the damage coming through, but this should be the burst down they're looking for. The flash away. No one's going to try and go too hard for that one, but Friend hanging off to the side. The question is, does Andre know? He does, I think, doesn't get close enough. Will back away, but that's a couple of summoners burnt in the mid lane.
And they're trying to get this bot lane scuttle control here. Should be able to pick that one off. Doom might actually be able to sneak a little sneaky double scuttle if he goes for it, but there's also a ward in that blue buff. Think it would be a little too rash to go for the blue buff here for Doom, though. The ability to get off the platform back into the jungle is far too quick at this stage in the game.
And also got to consider that Snitch is on low HP, no mana as well. He wants to get himself back, so trying to look for a fight at this kind of time, terrible idea. So as you called out, going to go instead for that double scuttle, get the one in the top side of the river. That kind of early recall point coming through a little bit earlier than maybe you'd see for most, but I imagine on the bot side of the map, you're looking for that back around the 3-minute 20, 3-minute 30 mark as we start seeing that Drake come online, of course, at the 4-minute mark alongside the Herald after 2.4.
Yeah, and this is the Infernal Drake 2. It's one of the few Drakes that you really do want to kind of get down and dirty for and fight for as soon as it comes up. Talking about, like, relative power at this stage in the game, it will be important to note that those ultimates, if available for Clue and Friend, could be game-changing. In terms of relative power of the champions, none of them are massively spiking at that first Dragon fight, but as I said before, it really comes down to execution in the team fight, and it really comes down to if you're able to land those ultimates for No Team, No Talent. Otherwise, I would say the slight advantage, especially with the fact that you've got a Galio and a Pantheon, maybe lies with Team Queso, just with that ability to brawl a little bit more effectively at this stage of the game.
Yeah, those globals are the ones that I'm keeping a super close eye on, just knowing they can appear pretty much anywhere at any given notice, as deep into the enemy backline as they choose. You could see the Pantheon engage come through with the Galio laid immediately on top for that CC smackdown into a taunt. At least for now, it's about playing things cautious. I think that's kind of been the theme so far of this month's finals, or at least it's felt like it, Scoundrel, is everyone is so cautious before that Drake comes online.
Definitely when it's a Drake like the Infernal, some teams have been more willing to just go for a cross-map trade, especially when you've got a split-pushing top laner and you want to pick up that Herald to kind of accelerate gold. I think one of the things that teams are still figuring out, and these teams are still making these decisions in their mind, is like, what is more worth it for us? Is getting Herald and using that to pick up a big gold advantage through pushing a first tower of the game important to us? We can maybe even get top lane tier 1. Or is it, you know, this dragon? What is this dragon going to offer our team overall? Now, it looks like the positional advantage lies with Team Queso right now, but you can see that the rest of No Team, No Talent are just gearing up to make the play around this Infernal.
The vision is what makes me nervous. There's so much on the backside. The instant engage into the battle. Leon's being absolutely burst down by this CC. The question is, can they stand in for the contest? Great ult comes across from the Seraphine, but nothing off the back. Andre's in. Steal not successful. They find one. They burn through him as well. Memorize might be next up on the chopping block. Indeed he is. Down goes Gragas into 3 remaining, and the chase is on for the side of No Team, No Talent. Imagine you'll just see Acolyte walk away here. Really good fight coming out for the side of No Team, No Talent. 2 kills and the Drake.
I think the decision-making from Team Queso was fine, but they were just not aware of how close that dragon was to dropping down. And No Team, No Talent, yeah, okay, a lot of resources burnt to take down Leon, but they just went for the dragon. That was what they were there for. That's what they wanted. You can take a look here. Leon has bought so much time and a lot of resources like flashes and taunts. They're all locked up. They used that Seraphine ultimate to buy some time to stop the advance from Team Queso, not really used to set up the team fight, and then it's just an overcommit from Team Queso. You already lose the dragon at this point, and you can see Memorized and Ruiz just a little bit overextended. Sorry, and Memorized and Andre a little bit overextended, but we're straight into another fight.
Yeah, and oh my god, they're going right in deep. Leon straight into the black line. Memorized with the stone plate coming out, keeps him going, but down goes the Kaiser in the back. Should be Andre's going down as well. Off he goes. Doom looking pretty low. Memorized, he's out of dodge. Ruiz is not. Another set of kills coming through for the side of No Team, No Talent. This time 3 for nothing.
That is a huge win for them. We talked about in Champions Select that this team needed time to scale, and they weren't exactly going to be looking to brawl over and over again, but they are doing exact opposite. They are just outclassing Team Queso when it comes to mechanical execution around these team fights, and even with I don't even think they had an ultimate. They might have had the Lee Sin kick there, but I don't think they had a big game-changing ultimate. Let's take a look here again. Leon looking for an angle, clearly looking for an angle for the kick. He kicks away Andre, but they're not able to get the Rift Herald. That's what they were trying to go for at that initial play. But the split comes out. You can see Team Queso completely split up. Kaiser on the front line, whilst both Acolyte and Andre are completely preoccupied with another area of the team fight. And that's where Snitch is able to pounce with Leon and take down some of the easier members to kill. Unfortunately, just poor focus from Team Queso, but they do come away with the Rift Herald, which is a little bit of a silver lining.
That's the hard part there, right, Scoundrel? Looking at this comp on the side of No Team, No Talent right now and saying, realistically, who do you focus? You ignore that backline, they're going to heal, they're going to shield, they're going to do all they can. You engage onto them, you got a Lee, you got a Car in your backline, the Corki's pretty safe. There's so much mobility in those top 3 side members, and then the security of the backline of the 2 supports in the bot lane. It's so difficult to deal with. Who do you focus, in your opinion?
I think there's a good answer to that question.
That's
if I'm honest.
right?
I think realistically there's just not a good answer. Even Doom now 2-shotting people almost. And you can see Leon.
Good kick coming through, but ultimately just walked off.
Oh, goodness gracious, that's pretty insane. And you can see, as we said, no team, no talent, just in a super strong spot. And as we said, I don't think there's a good answer for who you focus, because as I said before, it's a double-edged sword. Everybody is focusable because they're all such low HP, but you also want to focus everybody. Here's the engage coming through.
And immediately Doom's out of there. They burn the ult through as well from the Panther. Goes a little bit deep, does of course have the protection, but that's 2 global ults burnt there at Scoundrel for what was essentially a nullified trade. As soon as Doom was out, that should have been the end of it, but no. 2 ults burnt down. They do get the top lane tower and should here be able to get the one in bot in exchange. So it's not the end of the world, at least for the side of KZO. They have found something, and no team, no talent, not getting this bot lane tower. That's going to sting, but again, 2 global ults down.
You do trade those global ultimates for the top lane tier 1, though, which is a relatively nice, as we said, a bonus for them. However, I think you need to put it in context of where we are in the game right now. We have a dragon spawning in 20 seconds. Those are 2 big engage ultimates, 2 big teamfight ultimates that you probably want to keep in your back pocket. Andre overstepping once more.
Yeah, Doom going range low as well. Charge comes through from the Herald. A little bit of a tickle onto his side, but not enough to bring him down. It's clipping them wings of the Void Monster himself. Now, we're looking at the square up. It's going to be getting rooted on the top side here. Stun comes in immediately after. Acolyte should be able to walk this one off. But again, the pressure, the shields, the poke, everything coming out of the side of no team, no talent. Just a little bit much. Memorize unable to respond and losing half a health bar. It is not looking pretty. This is where there's a golden chance for a bit of a counter engage. Dive comes in from Andre. Ult coming across. Layered on top the 2 support ultra. Not really looking for that, but it does what it needs to. Amazing package straight across the middle. They've divided this team. They've divided and conquered through Team KZO. That's going to be an ace coming through. A clean one at that at Scoundrel.
And they're going for inhibitor turrets. They are sinking their teeth into Team KZO. This is 9 minutes into the game, and it is a clean ace, and it didn't even look close. You can see how easy it is to activate this Seraphine Sona composition, and my god, it looks insane. If you do not have the burst damage to absolutely take at least one of the key members out from No Team, No Talent, I don't think you've got a real chance of winning in these team fights. And I think from this point onwards, it's going to be very difficult for Team KZO to find their way back in. Let's take a look at this again. Again, Doom stunned up. It looked like exactly the layering of those ultimates, the Seraphine Stone ultimate, and that right there, that's the killer. 2 low HP bar members absolutely isolated with that package. Everybody else forced to retreat. And as you're retreating, you're getting the heals. You're getting that sustain from both the Sona and the Seraphine. And honestly, right now, No Team, No Talent looking complete control.
Yeah, really, it's a messy start to the fight, but even without it, it didn't matter because they had so many members locked down by either the Sonar ult or, of course, the Echoing ult, the Seraphine that goes all the way through to the back line. And off there, you've got those 3 high-damage frontliners in the Lee, the Car, the Corki. I guess a little bit less so the Lee, but enough damage to make it scary. And Ruiz even forced the flash away. They've got the ults online, so there are tools here for KZO to use. But like you said earlier on, they're down 6,500 gold. That's 2 items worth, if not potentially almost 3, that they're currently finding themselves behind.
And as you mentioned, there isn't really a good answer. Sometimes when you're in this position as a team, there might be a way for you to let's say it was a Vayne that was out of control. Okay, if we kill the Vayne, we have a chance in these team fights. But you mentioned it before, and we talked about it at length. There isn't a good answer. Everybody needs to die, and you need to kill everyone all at once. And if you don't, at least someone else is going to pick up the slack. And as I said, it's a double-edged sword a little bit.
Top side.
Yeah, exactly. Top side. We do have that engage going on.
Oh, great ult. Oh, the layering. They're CC for so long. It's Scoundrel. Memorize melted down. This is a 4 versus 3. Yet the health bars are falling for KZO. They've tried to find what they can. Fat Man dashes into the bug. Doesn't get a squash. Instead, gets slapped down by him himself. Ult's coming out from Andre and Galio. They want out of dodge, but only one makes it out alive. A great example, once again, of the damage this Sona Seraphine can do.
Can you see why Seraphine was banned in competitive for maybe 4 months straight in Europe? I mean,
you're seeing it shining, right?
Exactly. This is the clear example as to why. And there was a big, there was actually a lot of talk about Gamelord as a team, right? This is another one of the strong teams from our European side. Gamelord as a team used to run Seraphine consistently. It was one of the things that a lot of people maybe said there was a crutch for them in competitive because they relied on it a bit too much. I mean, Acolyte won't drop here to Leon, but Leon's certainly putting the pressure on the sideline. But that Seraphine was banned almost universally before Origin Series even kicked off. Now, I think, Leon, you're biting off a little bit more than you can chew.
I mean, he wants it. Oh, he finds the Fiora as well. Since when have you ever heard about a split pushing Lee Sin? Well, apparently Leon says, you have now.
Oh,
and even
God.
in a 1 versus 2 that becomes a 1 versus 3, finds the kill and gets away with his life.
That's disgusting, Leon. That's absolutely disgusting. Yeah, Leon just, I think, rubbing salt in the wounds at this point. I can see what Ebu's trying to achieve, and I can see what Ebu has been trying to achieve with these team fights. You know, Kai'Sa is one of the few AD carries that can dive that heavily, but at this point, I think, unfortunately, you're just too far behind to have any kind of impact, and we are knocking on inhibitor towers now, Derry, in this first game in the series.
Mid lane, bot lane, everything's starting to fall apart. Tusha full, basically in perfect synchrony here. That seems to be the case. 75 HP, the minion getting the last one down. And even with Clue, arguably the squishiest member on the team is the Sona, even up finding himself taken out there. Barely any damage coming across because these shields are just ever present.
I think they are pretty much done setting up this game.
The chain, the kick straight into the back line. Ibu's down to half HP without doing so much as using an ability. Ult from the Gragas comes through, but at this point, it's too late. It's everyone on the side of No Team, No Talent burning through the back line of Team Kai'Sa. Front line, back line, Nexus, everything gonna fall by the wayside. No Team, No Talent showing why they deserve that top spot. Kai'Sa without getting a single look in.
Yeah, absolutely clinical from No Team, No Talent right there. I actually do think in that last team fight, you saw a glimpse of what Kai'Sa needed to do to potentially achieve success. One of the most perfect Gragas barrels I've seen to kind of break up and isolate key members of the team there from No Team, No Talent. But alas, it was about 7 minutes too late. If you needed to do that around the Dragon fight, you needed to do that around the Rift Herald fight. Those were the sort of the areas where Memorize needed to have the impact, and he didn't, unfortunately. And even though there was a great ultimate there to isolate the Sona, potentially take out one of those members in the last team fight, it was just way too late. No Team, No Talent showing why they are the best team in Europe right now.
Now, you buzzed on about that Seraphine for the whole game, so I want to take a look at one of the replays from that game, the one that we saw around the blue buff when the invade came through from the aggressing side. Now, watch Andre here, because he flashes forward immediately and tries to get onto the Seraphine, does as much, but one ult comes out, another one gets laid on top just a couple of seconds later. Look at Friend's HP bar, filled with shields, goes into the Zhonya's. This is essentially 3 or 4 seconds of total downtime. Memorize in a panic because you got the Corki coming from the side. Again, a 4 versus 3, and the only health bar that looks low for a brief second was Clue's. Does get chunked down a little bit here by Andre in just a second, which is the main one to look for. But look, everyone basically at full HP. You got the Kha'Zix arriving in from the side. Everything just going the way of No Team, No Talent in that fight. And truthfully, I think in this next game, you are going to see a ban coming out against that Seraphine, because that was an absolute terror to deal with, it, Scoundrel.
No, I think you do. I think, unfortunately, that is just how it's going to be. We need to get rid of the Seraphine here. You can see why it has been banned in competitive in Europe for quite some time now. And that's the great thing about it is that even when it's not banned, you can still see that teams are able to execute on it. Because sometimes you leave open an OP pick, and suddenly people are like, oh, yeah, let's get it. And then they haven't had the practice on it in scrims. They haven't had the practice on it enough to kind of execute on the stage. But No Team, No Talent, clearly able to.
Lots of talent, apparently, with that Seraphine. However, let's get into game 2 and see if it does make it through the ban phase. Game number 2, X-Scoundrels, some changes needed in the draft, and for Team Kai'Sa, there needs to be a momentous fight back, because No Team, No Talent, 18-2 on kills. They gave nothing to Kai'Sa in that game.
No, and again, as we said before, it was a very scary comp from No Team, No Talent, but if they made a mistake or they let themselves get behind, there were clear areas that you could exploit, but they didn't let themselves get behind. They in fact accelerated from the first Dragon fight and never really sort of look back. And unfortunately, I do think Kai'Sa very quickly, A, drafted for early game, but also B, missed their window by quite a margin. One of the things that you have to think about when you're dealing with a composition like that is that you have to ask yourself an honest question, Derry. Do I think I'm going to, win in a team fight? And the answer probably was that no. So, got to look for other win conditions maybe to exploit.
Absolutely. Pick a ban is ready. Let's jump straight into it then. Again, bans this time round. I'm looking for that Seraphine ban to come out. That's the one that did so much damage in the last game. Needs to be a big change here. The question is she alone a ban enough? Do you think? I don't really see a Sona come through without her, for example. Is one enough?
I think Sona's not as strong. I'm going to be honest with you. I think either of them in isolation, realistically, but Seraphine can be worked. Like Seraphine, Seraphine Lux can be worked together quite nicely. Seraphine and other enchanters has been worked. Seraphine is also a good standalone pick in the mid lane that can sometimes supplement other compositions. Whereas Seraphine Sona, Sona rather, is really just a support. And actually, she's got quite a lot of bad lane matchups, and realistically, is not quite as powerful unless paired with Seraphine specifically. However, They didn't ban it. Varus is the last ban here. The only change up is that we're going to see Corki taken away by No Team, No Talent, and it'll be Senna immediately locked in. So we're probably looking at a fasting Senna lane here for Team Queso. I would not be surprised. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm going to shut up. It's Camille.
You've seen the Kha'Zix coming out as well. The ban against Doom. They did a lot of work in that previous fixture. Just rolling in the front line with a bit of support from the Sona Seraphine and then jumping out as soon as things got a bit hairy. Very, very scary. On the other side, you mentioned the Camille and the Gragas. Great potential there to lock someone down and just nuke your way through them. May see that going down to support. Time will tell. On the other side, it's going to be that Fiora and the Galio.
I'm assuming this is Galio bot now with Senna. Galio Senna is a pretty common fasting Senna lane where you just funnel the gold into the Galio. And that makes him very, very either high damage if you go down AP or if you're trying to go for like a tanky Galio build, it can be very tanky. But this is Lee Sin and then Vayne locked in. So even with the option of a potential Seraphine Sona lane, we will see Vayne locked in for No Team, No Talent.
All right, interesting. We did see Vayne picked up in a couple of the games yesterday, and to great effect, mind you, when paired with something like a Pantheon. Obviously not going to be the case here, as we have already seen the 3 separate laners already locked in. It's going to be that Lulu and the Vayne. Again, a pairing that we did see yesterday. Worked really well. My number one concern at Scoundrel was it did take 15 minutes or so for the Vayne to really come online and start chewing through those frontline tanks.
Yeah, but I think most good Vayne players don't take that long now. The thing about Vayne is that her true damage got buffed recently on her Silver Bolts, which actually has made her an absolute menace, even in the early game. Most top tier AD carries that you sort of play with around the challenger level will say, I think Vayne's like a busted AD carry. And I think with Lulu specifically, it's absolutely nutty. So I think, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, you do put a lot of eggs in your basket when you're playing a Vayne comp, and especially versus the type of wombo combo comp that we can see the Team Queso have drafted, you do have to be a little careful. But overall, you know, I think Vayne's in a strong spot, stronger than she's ever been in Wild Rift, especially from a bot lane perspective. So not surprised to see her pop up in competitive right now.
Absolutely. Game is ready, though. Let's get into it. Game 2 of this potential best of 3. I'm sure there's plenty more to come yet, though, at Scoundrel. Excited to see how that bot lane does. A bit of a change up for both sides here. I'm hoping it pays off for Queso, because between these two teams, you really do want to be seeing all 3 maps.
I really want to see the whole distance. I think, you know, these are two teams that technically, you know, have gone blow for blow over the course of the last few months. I mean, there were points at which Team Queso were kind of comfortably taking wins off the former Tribe Gaming EU. So I think realistically, these guys should be relatively evenly matched. But like I said, I actually think that we've seen an evolution of this No Team, No Talent roster over the course of like the last 2 to 3 months, where they've really gone from strength to strength. And I don't think many other teams have kind of kept up with them apart from Gamelord. I think those are our 2 really top 2 teams in Europe, and everybody else is just a little further behind.
Team Gamelord in the last final, struggling to keep up with that triple AD carry comp that we mentioned coming out before. However, maybe there's something in the water and Queso can do some damage in this game, and see, of course, what Gamelord can do in the future. On that top side, it's that repeat matchup. Once again, it's worth mentioning Leon, a real terror as we saw coming up against the Fiora, even putting her down to half HP whilst he sat there very merrily on about full HP.
And I think Leon in general is just... He's a very interesting Baron laner, actually. I think Leon has clear strengths and weaknesses. I think he's the strongest like carry Baron laner that we have in the entire of Europe. But I think the problem is that he's a carry Baron laner and doesn't really have tanks in his arsenal, and he's a lot weaker on tanks than some of the other top laners who are a little bit more serviceable. Like Acolyte is a better tank player than Leon, right? But Leon's just, I think, the better carry player, better than any other carry player in Europe. We have an early gank though coming through.
Oh, there should be an easy stun as well, because he's already used out the W, dashes away, but not to come through. The immediate support gank coming in. Leon should be the one going down. The red buff ticking away. One more hit from the Wukong, dashes away. The flash forward should find it. The shield came out, but no, it's first blood coming through for Andre.
And that is a really good counter gank for Andre. He's ahead in experience, ahead in pretty much every metric right now over Doom. And he is pushing the envelope. Doom definitely a bit slow in terms of his jungle clear right now. And if you get level 5 very quickly as Andre, which he will do after this scuttle, he can potentially even double scuttle here and have that ultimate available, which will suddenly make him much more impactful on the map.
Oh, he's going in for it as well, because he knows what he can get away with. Has the flash on side. Oh, but the body slam. It's enough to keep himself alive from the Monkey King who came charging in. As you mentioned, you're looking towards the spot side for the double scuttle, but Doom has now arrived. The problem is he's got support of 3 members of his team. It's a risky one. Doom might find himself burnt out here if not careful. The charge comes through, but dashes over the wall. It will secure that crab, but not without a bit of a fight.
Yeah, really, really good presence of mind and map awareness here from Team Queso. They had complete priority in the bot lane, as you would expect versus a Vayne relatively early on, and that has allowed them to rotate up proactively to help Andre secure the double scuttle in this scenario. So Doom just a little further behind than he'd like to be at this stage in the game, and this is a great resurgence from Team Queso. Honestly, I think this is a really big heads-up play from them. It's going to come back out swinging in this game. They're definitely on the right foot when this starts out. Let's take a look back here. This was the gank. I think, unfortunately, Leon just not able to land enough damage, and Doom a little too late to make that gank happen as Acolyte bought enough time with the riposte. Leon overcommitted, took some damage from both Acolyte and the minions, which unfortunately took him low enough. And Andre, as we said, a camp up on Doom, had the experience advantage, and always in the counter gank scenario, you're very likely to come out on top.
One of those I look at and do wonder where, of course, the E coming out of the Camille was. Don't think it was there for Dooms. Didn't manage to get the stun onto the Fiora that could have netted them a kill, but it's one of those that you look back at and say, oh, well, maybe next time. At least looking at the setup as well, it's worth mentioning. Snitch is normally another, player on this side of No Team, No Talent that does like to play quite aggressive in the mid lane. Oh, it's unfortunate for Leon, I guess. Is Acolyte going to leave it? I imagine he is. He's going to say playing on the Gragas, though. Last time it was things like Orianna, Carly, Lucian, Corki, all these much more aggressive mid laners rather than looking towards playing a tank. So for Snitch, it's quite a new experience as well.
Actually, do you know what? I'm giving massive props to Acolyte. I think if I was in Acolyte scenario there, I'd say, well, it's competitive. It's Origin Series. I just take the win. They actually let Leon reconnect and didn't kill him. I'm going to be honest, I don't usually kind of say this thing on a cast, but I've got huge respect for people that actually do that, and kind of try to make the game feel as fair as possible in a competitive setting. So huge respect for Acolyte for making that happen.
You're saying you're not normally a respectful man at Scoundrel?
No, he absolutely is, but I'm just thinking he's earned my
respect.
Like
you. You're saying I don't normally say this. I respect the player.
No, I mean more just normally sort of allude to like connection issues and that kind of stuff.
Don't worry about it. I'm memeing you a little bit from the front, don't worry. But here comes the fight over the Herald now as it goes down to 1500 HP. Doom is isolated, dodges out a bit of damage with the ultimate, but should find himself burnt out here. Surely the wild growth has come through, but finally finds himself going down, and now they're on the offensive. Queso looking forward. He's reconnected this time, but it's still a little bit of a fight win coming in, it feels, for the side of Team Queso.
Oh, not even just a little bit. A huge fight win for Team Queso. They take out a kill and get the next neutral objective on the board too. This neutral objective, which is going to help them accelerate their gold lead even further by dropping it in one of the lanes where they're going to get an immediate tower. And plus the fact that Acolyte is just constantly split pushing here. He's almost got this tier 1 tower on this bottom side of the map, maybe looking for a dive onto Leon, who has been behind from the very get-go.
They're trying to do what he can catch, but Acolyte a little bit too quick on his feet there at Scoundrel, and no ults on side for Leon or for Doom. He's nothing ready to lock him down with a secure kill.
It's very interesting that I'm guessing that No Team No Talent felt like they had a game in hand and wanted to kind of shift their draft ups a little bit. I'm trying to think why, for instance, Vayne felt like a good pick in this scenario, because there are usually you'd pick Vayne into like a big beefy tank that you're easily able to kite, like the Garen, for instance, but maybe they were just trying to see what else they could make work, because I feel like you had that Seraphine Sonar open. That would have been a great answer into a heavy team fight comp that you're seeing coming out.
What's Doom here, by the way?
Yeah, Doom. The thing is, like, Doom's just massively overextended. There's nothing else he can do about it, realistically. He kind of went for the commit. He was looking for the angle to look for the steal, and unfortunately, just his team aren't strong enough to back him up. Realistically, the team fight from No Team No Talent purely relies on Vayne. It's essentially a complete Vayne team fight. Everything else is like either there to either peel for Vayne or isolate targets for Vayne. But realistically, this is a friend-based team comp. Everything else kind of flounders at what Team Queso are offering in a pure 35.
I'm quite glad the full offering they had before. 22 stacks on the center so far, of course, in case you want to keep tabs on how she's doing so far. Not super well, but of course we'll see how that looks to scale up in future. You are right about the Vayne. I kind of thought at first, I was like, well, who are you focusing here? Really only looking at the Galio that's likely going to build any real HP. Everyone else is just diving onto you. I guess Wukong as well. But they're all trying to dive onto you just like this and murder you. There comes the charm. All the CC piles in. We'll sure get a bit of assistance instead of coming through for an execute. But of course, not quite enough damage built up just yet. That was quite a lot of investment coming out of the side of Queso, though. Friends didn't have to burn flash. Ult still online. They've got everything. But off to the side, it's another one being caught out. It's the Gragas going down. Snitch not in a good spot and finds himself done. Snitches get stitches, or in this case, they get slaughtered. A double kill coming through for the Ahri. 4-0 Team Queso.
They are just really far ahead now. We did talk about how the draft maybe wasn't ideal into what Team Queso had brought to the table. I think maybe execution as well feels a little wonky. The problem is with the Lee Sin matchup is if you give any space to your opponent laner, like that gank that went wrong, Fiora will just start to take over that matchup, and there is very little that I think Leon can do. It's a very swing-heavy matchup where the person that gets ahead generally tends to run away with it. We saw that in the first game. We're starting to see that in the second game as well. And Leon really is just becoming a kick bot at this point. Like, he's there to make a good kick happen in these team fights, and that is about it. You can see the engage here again onto Friend, gets charmed up. Beautiful charm from Ruiz in the mid lane. Does get eventually condemned away, but realistically, every single resource has been used to keep Friend alive, and that meant there's nothing left to put Friend in a strong offensive position for a reactive team fight. And Snitch on the sidelines tried to make some kind of flank happen, but unfortunately caught out by the good vision control that we have in the red side jungle. Leon, no idea what he was doing, classic Leon things, and just died.
I think poor Clue had to basically run his tongue across his whole mobile phone screen there as well. He had the heal going off, the ult going off, the shield, the polymorph, the redemption, everything being rolled down. The only thing of not, of course, coming out was the flash of his own, which he still holds onto. But doing what every good support should do and saving, what can I say, Bane spotting based Banes from going down so early. Good engage coming out of Team Kaiser, but also ultimately not managing to find their target. But this time around, it might be Leon being the target. Gets himself engaged in by the Ahri. There's the flash in, the knocker coming through onto two members of the Vayne. One of the targets now isolated off to the side. Low mana, ult out, and nothing able to be done about it. Kaiser finds another and forced No Team, No Talent back once again.
The very short laning phase in this game has meant that you've given very little time for Friend to get free farm and free experience, and now you are just desperately trying to absorb any wave that crashes into you as possible as the Vayne at this point in time, where all of these neutral objectives are just slowly falling in favor of Team K. So the one thing that we have got is that it's not going to be an Infernal Dragon until the Soul, so maybe we can see, or rather the Elder, so maybe we can see an Elder Infernal swing the game. Baron is not yet on the cards. There are still options and areas where No Team, No Talent can potentially look for a comeback, but if you're going and opting for a pure 5v5 until Friend is maybe at 3 items, I don't think you're winning these. I think the 5v5 is infinitely better from Team Queso, and you can also see why Wukong used to be a pretty consistent ban in competitive as well. It's just too easy for him to push a button and engage a fight, and we're seeing that deadly combo between the Wukong and the Galio being pulled off several times in this game already.
And it's going to get way worse as well, because Wukong now has finished off the Sunfire. Ahri's got hold of the Death Cap. You've got Fiora hitting the second Item Spike, as well as the center bringing on the Last Whisper. Just the armor shred they've got and the pile in from the Wukong is going to be absolutely lethal. A great time, I think, for KZ to start looking for a fight here, because on the other side, they're only just starting to get those second items together at this point at Scoundrel. There's almost a 3 or 4 item advantage stacking in here, which you would expect with an 8k gold advantage. But Leon, what are you doing, dude? That's the wrong way to go. GA gets burnt out, and now that he's in the middle of 5, just waiting for him to come up out of that res down, he goes without so much as a response. Kaizo, again, just abusing a little bit of advantage here and setting things up way better than No Team Talent are in the second game of this best of 3.
I mean, they have to go for it. They've got no vision on the Baron, and I think Doom forced to flash away here. We get another fight just breaking out.
I mean, look at Friend. He's trying his best. He's trying to do something. Rui's going quite low, but not enough to get himself finished off. And the counter attack coming in from the side of Kaiser, but in they go, the redemption. Not just emboldening their health bars, but also their courage. But it was Fool's courage at Scoundrel. They find one more going down. This time, Doom picked off. Jungler dead. Baron on the cards, quite possibly. But of course, got to be concerned about Leon, who's back up and on the board.
I don't think you're concerned about Leon this point. It's Team K, so you're just so far ahead. You've got a lot of sustain with a very fed center as well. You can see right now they are just so audacious going in, finding these fights, and actually the kick to force Acolyte away. But that's, you know, they don't care about the 1v1s at this point. They're really only trying to ward away from the Baron. Although I say that, a lot of health bars coming back here, healthy health bars coming back from Team K, from No Team No Talent.
TP on the back line as well as Doom's now in. Could they steal this one away? If anyone can, it's Doom. Our man can. Yes, he gets it. They steal it away from Kaizo. However, members are falling. Low health bars on the side of Kaizo. Still a couple walking away, and kills are flying on their way back through. They do get 3 back, Team Kaizo, but they lose the Baron.
Maybe a little bit too much committed to stopping people getting into the pit. Doom was not there. It was only Leon and Snitch that you had to worry about. They did not trust the straight-up smite power of Andre, and they delayed the damage onto Baron enough to allow No Team, No Talent to recollect and get back towards that Baron pit. And if anything is going to stall this game out for enough time to activate the Vayne, it is stealing a Baron. That will stop them and losing those inhibitor towers too quickly. As we said, look at here again. Low HP bars in the Baron pit. They've committed too many resources, unfortunately, to trying to stop just 2 members of No Team No Talent getting into that Baron pit. And as you said, if anybody can do it, it's Doom. His smite was good. Unfortunately, you could see Friend on the side lane just completely caught out. There was maybe a quadra or a triple kill on the cards for him if he could have managed to get there unhindered. But nonetheless, you will take that fat W if you're No Team No Talent.
Oh, I mean, at this point, the way things are currently setting up, yeah, it's looking difficult. What can they do to fight their way back in? The answer, probably not an awful lot. Now, Charge Blade is a line for the Vayne, so it's one thing to look forward to, but that is the only second completed item on the side of No Team No Talent as that gold lead, begins to balloon past the 9k mark, looking towards the 10k. I don't see a way in that No Team fight this one back, but that does mean we have a really exciting map 3 in our hands potentially at Scoundrel.
Oh, absolutely, as we said, you know, there is a slim chance at this point. We have the Stellaris Charge Blade finished up for the Vayne right now. That is a strong second item, although, as we said, would like to be complemented by something else with another critical strike item. Ideally, we have the Engage, maybe being teased here by Andre. The Baron is giving enough staying power here for No Team No Talent to just at least push these waves out. There's no way they can fight the Dragon, but I think at this point, if you're No Team No Talent, you're not caring until it's Elder. So you've got another 4 minutes or so to get together, try and get as many items as you can, and put yourself in a strong enough position to fight in a team fight. That is really what we're looking at. Maybe the next Baron on the cards as well, but at this point, you're really looking at Elder, Infernal, and the next Baron as those 2 big objectives that No Team No Talent have to be confident fighting. 3 items Vayne is on the horizon. Ideally, we'd love to see that plus a stopwatch or even a Quicksilver to get yourself out of that Galio taunt or charm. But nonetheless, you know, we're on a timer at this point, Darian. If those two objectives go comfortably towards Queso, I have a feeling that it's going to be very difficult for No Team No Talent to get into this game.
You missed it a second ago as well. Ibu now currently on 61 stacks. So about 7 minutes ago or so, he was only at 22, and we said, oh, quite slow so far. Probably in part due to that short laning phase that you alluded to, whereas now, somehow managed to double, well, not even double, triple that amount in the last 7 minutes or so. So good scaling up, but ultimately with how the fights are playing out, all the poke coming through as these team fights develop, it's no massive surprise that is starting to layer up. You've got Acolyte looking to play on a split push by himself. No big surprise there, while the rest of the team groups towards the top side. But as you can see from the Galio and the Wukong both going back because they know that in 20 seconds time, hell is going to break loose. Deathcut coming in on the Galio, GA coming out for the Wukong. They're gearing up for a win here at Scoundrel.
Hoping that, you know, if you're No Team No Talent, you're looking to get your Sterax online for both Doom and Leon. Snitch needs to finish up that Liandry's. He has got it. So we are looking at some 2-item spikes that are just about creeping around the corner. You can see who they're investing their resources in, though. The guy that is closest in gold is going to be Friend. He's got a significant advantage over most of his teammates, but isn't quite at that 3rd item. And crucially, does not have that defensive boot enchant, which will be very important to this Baron fight. Although I say that memorized.
Yeah, overextending for farm quite a lot here as no one else was around. However, he doesn't care. He's tanky enough that at this point he might be able to make it out. The flash away, but Leon connects on. It's finished off instead by Doom in the end. They found one, but can they find any more? Members going down. GA's being burnt. Clue has got a clue in the back line and a slither of HP to his name, but in comes the Wukong. Finds one more. Q onto the wrong target, but he don't care. Snitch might just make it out, but in comes Acolyte for the finish. It's a triple kill for Ruiz, who is popping off on the Ahri in this game. And I tell you what, Scoundrel, it's looking scarily like last game. Remember, it ended 18-2 to No Team No Talent. This time round, the script has flipped and it's Team Kaizo on 14-2. Leon, if only you were a jungler, my friend, maybe there's a fair to good chance. Goes in for the kick, tries to look for it, but has to flash back out immediately after. This one should be secured away, and No Team No Talent, they're into hell zone now at Scoundrel.
Yeah, they absolutely are. It did look like there were moments where they could have potentially overtaken in that team fight, but I've got to be completely honest with you. You need to pay attention very clearly to stopwatch timings, or rather stasis timing. Stopwatch is a League PC thing. Stasis was buying a lot of time here, including that Guardian Angel from the Wukong. Look at this right here. Ruiz buys a beautiful stasis. That means that Friend can't find the executing blow, and at that point, Ibu is able to just basically collapse and find that kill onto the Vayne. If Vayne was able to pop off there and start picking up those kills, I have no doubt that there was a chance that Friend would be able to clean up. But as you said, it is a huge win for Team Queso here to pick up that Baron. And now with just over 40 seconds to go until the Elder Infernal spawns, it is another do-or-die team fight on the horizon for No Team No Talent.
Both Ruiz and Andre are so fed at this point as well. It's hard to see how you ever stop them. In goes the Galio to catch one. Doom ulting on top to try and dodge away some damage, but still gets burnt down by the Senna, who's building up that range now with those stacks starting to assemble. Great engage coming in from the Wukong. Knocks up 2 health bars eviscerated before their very eyes. Another couple of kills do fall back over. One for Andre, one onto Doom. It's looking okay, but still the driving seat on the side here for the side of Team Kaizo as they pick up the Senna as well.
Important to know, though, it's 2 for 2 overall, and we still have that Vayne going at this point in time, too. So we're not out of the woods yet for either team as that Elder Infernal spawns up. No junglers on the map means it's likely going to be at least sidelined for the time being, but it is a clutch defense from a massive overextension from Team Kaizo. If Kaizo had just played that slow and played for the towers, we might have been looking at a game over already, but they went deep into the enemy base. And I think at this point, if you're no team, no talent, you will gladly take anything like that. Doom over the wall there was very interesting. I'm not entirely sure what he was trying to achieve. In the meantime, though, they do exit through that gate into their own base, and you can see Andre massively overextending. Great kick from Leon to prevent Friend from dying. Another fight going on.
Another one this time round around the Drake, the one that you are looking for. But I think, again, it's a bit of an overextension from no team, no talent. They're the ones who stayed a bit too long. This time round, health bars melted. Members deleted. Everything falling by the wayside. Clue and Snitch, they're all that stands in the way. Apparently, no clue on how to fight their way back into the game. Should be able to force this one up. We should see at least a couple of these inhibitor towers falling after they've got hold of this Drake. Because knowing those respawn timers are at that 30-second mark at Scoundrel, you're in a 5 versus 2. Surely you're saying towers need to fall.
I think at this point, you're just way too far behind in anything, really. We're looking at a 16k gold lead. That is a ludicrous number of item spikes. Ruiz, by the way, who has been memed in the past as being a bit of an Ahri1 trick. You can kind of see why Ahri has been one of those clutch champions for him. 908 on that. He's got a huge amount of gold. He's the highest gold value on the entire Team Kaizo team. And at this point, we're looking at 84 souls for Senna. That is a ridiculous amount of range. You're outranging turrets at this point in time. I don't really think that's... Yeah, I think it doesn't matter, though. Honestly, it just doesn't matter, Derry.
I mean, caught out, nuked. Don't really care. Stitch has gone down. Clue has gone down. You'll take that as a trade every day of the week. And Friend, even almost finding yourself burnt out, will finally get finished off. That's going to be game number 2, going the way of Team Kaizo. A dominant comeback victory. And it leaves you wondering already at Scoundrel, what the hell does game 3 actually look like?
I think it looks like a different draft for one, if I'm honest with you, Derry. That's my main thinking when it comes to this third game. Great performance, though, from Team Kaizo. I think they really, really played their strategy well. I mean, they did exactly what happened to them in the previous game. They found good team fight windows, and they just executed on them. And unfortunately, NTNT opted into team fight windows that they just weren't strong enough to kind of react to.
We've got so much more to talk about, I'm sure, and as these highlights play out, we'll have a good chat about them at Scoundrel, because we've just seen the reverse of Game 1 playing out before our very eyes. Again, it does open up the big question of what the rest of this looks like. But in your mind, where did this start going wrong? I mean, this fight's a great example, but where did things really go wrong for the side of NTNT?
It was just a really bad setup. Like, Doom was clearly flanking for a potential option to go for the Smite Steal or maybe a flank onto a key target, but it just wasn't quite synced up with this team, unfortunately. And at this point forwards, that was a great charm by Ruiz. Again, lots of defensive things burnt just to keep the Vayne alive. And at this point, you don't care if you're a Team Kaizo. You're just, okay, fine, you've burnt all your resources just to keep them alive. We're going to take the tower in the mid lane for free and start to push that vision into the red side jungle, pick off people like this. Leon is just happy gaming at this point in this team fight. And I think you give too many advantages too early on to a team that just very much snowballs as well.
That's the thing, right? It's not like it's no team, no talent, despite being one of the best teams that we have here in Group A are going to find other teams just roll over even when things start going wrong for NTNT. They know how to take an advantage. It's why Kaizo are, for the longest time probably never described as a top 4, but always pushing into that top 4 or giving threat to those that were considered top 4. At this point, they're showing what they can do. If this next game goes against them, it's going to be really fearful if you're a team looking around this, because I think at this point, no team, no talent, and Game Lord have already secured their spots in the championship. That third spot is still up for question, and Kaizo look like the ones secured, look ready to take it.
I don't know if Game Lord have I think as far as I can see.
Sorry, no, Kaizo have taken it. No Talent have taken it. Sorry.
Yeah. Kaizo are already qualified. I mean, it looks like I don't think Singularity can catch Gamelord realistically easily. There's a chance right now, which is why Gamelord have not absolutely qualified. But it looks as if our top teams are going to be No Team, No Talent, Kaizo, and Gamelord, like locked in 100% here for the Group A standings. But both of these teams. In terms of points in the Origin series, they are the top 2 teams that we have in our competition, just in terms of pure points gained throughout the Origin series. So Kaizo in a good spot, and then pretty happy with that win here over No Team, No Talent.
And still another map to go. Let's get into it. Game 3 is ready. We are being met by banger after banger so far tonight at Scoundrel, the first series of the day. 3 20-minute plus maps today. We've seen an 18-2 to a 23-5 in alternating teams. Absolute stomps by either side. And now it comes down to this in the third and final map. One team's got to walk away the winner. And you believe a lot of that comes down to the draft.
Absolutely. I think it's been draft dependent on both games. I had in my mind felt like No Team, No Talent were basically trying out a comp, just trying to see what works. I think the idea behind a Vayne comp is similar to a Jinx comp in the sense that Senna scales really well with the fasting Senna comp, so you want something that can maybe match that scaling. But when it comes to actual mechanics of a team fight, like it's very difficult to Vayne to play into that team comp. It's very difficult to play into a Wukong, a Galio, all that close range CC, and Vayne being a relatively close range aggressive AD carry in team fight situations, especially when you see Iceborne Gauntlet picked up on the Senna. It is a very difficult comp to play into as a Vayne. So I think there was definitely some issues when it came to draft there. Senna does get banned away here, so we won't see a Senna comp. I wonder if we'll see a Seraphine ban. I wonder if a No Team, No Talent may just end up reverting back to what worked for them.
I mean, why fix what ain't broken? The only real fear you got now is that Kaizo know that's likely up their sleeve here, something they can deploy if they choose to. They did leave it for their last 2 picks in that first game fixture, so I'm thinking here if you're going to save it until the late point, fair enough. But does that mean Kaizo now start to think about potential counters or ways to draft around it?
Maybe. I mean, the Xin Zhao's up here, which is a really great engage tool, actually something that's quite good at dealing with Seraphine Sona style compositions for the same reason that Gragas is, because you can kind of split things up. So I like the Xin Zhao here. I think it's really nice. And look at this though, No Team, No Talent immediately pivoting away from that, and they're going to go for a Ezreal Janna, a super safe bot lane that scales really nicely. Maybe looking towards exploiting Leon as a bit more of a split push threat in this game. Ruiz is with the chips down, mate. Ruiz just locks it in. He goes for the Ahri again, and Kai'Sa, who is considered another high tier AD carry on this patch, or has been for the last several thousand patches, gets logged in for Team Kai'Sa.
A couple of big changes coming out there as well. Doom back onto the Kha'Zix. That clearly is his favourite of the month. He says, Xin, no longer my best friend. Kha'Zix, my best friend now. I do like the Ezreal Janna in the bot lane, because the Ezreal we saw coming out in their best of 5 finals last month, where they picked it up in 2 of their 4 games that they walked away with the 3-1 winning. On the other side, it's not a massive change. That's what makes me a little bit nervous. As you know, Kaizo are confident given what they've just done with this comp. You know, do you think there are enough changes here on the side of No Team, No Talent to make this a success in game 3?
I think the Gragas Xin was definitely a predictor pick into something like the Seraphine Sona, because you have strong mid-game engage and you can split team fights up, especially at the first dragon. The fact that we then saw an immediate pivot from No Team, No Talent means I have a little bit more faith, especially Ezreal into Xin is quite a difficult matchup for Xin to play into as the game goes on. I think the one thing that I'm looking at and thinking is really scary though is Xin Lulu in the mid-game. Xin Lulu is nutty good in the mid-game. It's very strong around the first and second dragons, and I think there's a lot of scaling elements to the pretty much entire scaling to the side of No Team, No Talent. So again, early game can be a bit treacherous here for No Team, No Talent. They're gonna have to be a bit careful the way they choose to play it out.
You got me excited about that early to mid game, and it's a good thing because the game is ready. Let's jump into the third match between these 2 teams to see who walks away the winner. In case you're only just joining us, 2 maps have already passed. The first one very dominant to No Team, No Talent with the Seraphine Sona bot lane. Kaizo fought back in game 2 to bring us here, but we have seen a couple of new picks coming through, namely the Twisted Fate, the Ezreal, and the Janna.
I think the Ezreal is a nice pickup into a comp like Team Kai'Sa. You have lots of maneuverability, lots of mobility to deal with. Gragas, Ahri, Xin Zhao, all these things that are looking to just, point point their engage at you and try and make it happen. That's why Ezreal's often picked into heavy engage comps, because he has a lot of flexibility with where he wants to go in team fights. There's the Twisted Fate, able to kind of influence those side lane matchups, maybe go into a 1-3-1. I talk a lot about these tactics that you do often see in LoL PC, but you don't usually see them in Wild Rift because people haven't quite figured out how to make them work effectively. But I love this from Ruiz. He knows exactly where he's strong, just stepping up in this minion wave, trying to stop Snitch from getting the last hits, because he knows that, as a Twisted Fate, he's in a scenario where he's in a strong lane matchup versus the Twisted Fate, which is where he's able to just keep exploiting.
That's the thing, right? The potential shove in the lane is a big one. I mean, look towards the top side, though. Leon, as you mentioned, not really the kind of guy to play on those more tanky champions. In fact, we saw it, I think, back in June, you and I cast him play, and we interviewed him afterwards, and he said, I think he played Gragas with a bunch of ults. He was just like, yeah, I just walk around and my team just win. And I was like, I mean, fair play. That's maybe what you're seeing him playing things like this, and so far it has started out well for them. But of course, we'll keep a close eye on how that lane develops into the mid game.
Something that is really in favor of No Team, No Talent here is that this Gragas Fiora matchup. It's a very strong matchup for the Fiora, and especially if Gragas is going down the tank route, which having started Ruby Crystal, I imagine that he is. This is a very strong lane that Leon can look to exploit. It's very difficult to trade effectively. You kind of have to rely on the inbuilt sustain that Gragas has in his kit to give you any kind of edge over this matchup. So I'm really hoping that that's where No Team, No Talent are looking to put a couple of resources, maybe through the likes of the Twisted Fate ultimate, or maybe through, ganks from Doom. I don't think you're going to get a huge amount of love on the bot side. You're not a super aggressive lane, especially until you pick up that first item. Ezreal with a mana crystal start ain't exactly killing people. So I think if you're going to invest resources anywhere, Leon is a good place to put resources, because you have such a strong matchup into that tank lane.
You saw the mid lane, aggression coming out of Snitch for a couple of seconds onto the Ahri, who didn't have a full rotation to trade back. So good time is coming out of Snitch. Speaking of which, goes back, picks himself up the Catalyst and the Blast in one. Not quite the full rubber just yet, but it's got time to get that online before that Drake comes up in about 90 seconds or so. I think he was looking maybe towards making something happen on the bot side as well, because again, using that global in the early game, making appearances in the side lanes is the play. You want to try and get one of them scaling ahead.
You do see the Bramble Vest picked up now, though, for Acolyte. That's going to be something that gets a lot of value. It's one of the best items to counter Fiora specifically. It kind of cuts some of that healing that she gets when proccing her vitals in the lane. So if you're ever into a Fiora matchup and you're not sure what to build as a tank, your first item should usually be this Bramble Vest. Now, it has been nerfed on the most recent patch, which gives Fiora a little bit more of an edge than she would have had previously. But just to be aware that it is one of the best items that you can get into Fiora in a 1v1 matchup in that lane. It's also a pretty good option. Ooh.
I mean, no stun on side, so not going to finish them off. Surely flashes away. Yep. I mean, fortunately, there was no gold card on hand. Otherwise, that would have been one dead Fox. All coming through onto the back as well, but I think just managing to dodge away from it. Ruiz keeping himself safe away from the Ezreal ultimate.
One thing that I would say that also may be something to consider here for Acolyte is that realistically, the main threats that are going to be dealing damage to you on a consistent basis are all AD. You're really not expecting Twisted Fate, especially because he's got limited burst damage. You're not expecting Twisted Fate to kind of be slapping you consistently with cards, and if he is, he's probably not hitting the right target. So if you want to invest early into any defense one way or the other, it's definitely an investment for armor this time round.
Alrighty, here we go. Potentially getting caught out here as well. Andre, I mean, the ult online does help, of course, with the range damage. It doesn't help when a Kha'Zix is right up in your grill, slicing away at you with those claws. And that's the kind of man that you want to five. It's Kaizo who find the jungler going down first, and hopefully a Drake being secured by NTNT. The side of Kaizo not even willing to try and contest this one.
I mean, they weren't even in position for it, Derry. That's what made me very sort of worried about why they decided to step into the river. No one was there to support Andre. They would not set up to care about that Ocean Dragon, although they have set up more effectively around this Rift Herald. And there's been a redemption burn early on just to check if any Rift Herald antics have been going on. So maybe Team Kaizo looking to get more of an edge in a Rift Herald fight here and use that to accelerate the game through taking one of the first tier 2 turrets, potentially mid, and get that gold advantage. He steals it away.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? But still not the ideal one you want to be given to Ruiz after all that he did in the previous game. Clue almost finding yourself dying on the Janna will be no part of this fight. The ultimate from the TF coming out, looking to join the fight here before the Gragas can. Comes in towards the friendly side, stun coming in, but Rui's immediate dash away. Very smart, engaged from Andre. Will keep himself alive at least for now. Being chased down, but not enough to get the finish off. Friend flashing forward, still can't do even that. But now they've caught out Ebu. This should be a massive fight for them as they run through the tower. A double kill coming through. There is, of course, one in response onto Doom, but still a very valuable fight coming out for NTNT, and they aren't done. Acolyte was next, and finally we're going to find Leon being forced away. In fact, no, wants to go hyper-aggressive. Memorize, surely not. He's kind of dragged him towards it. The flash, not enough. Can he get the double? Goes in, sees the next proc, comes out for it. The heal not quite there as both members flash away at the last second. That one could have been an absolute steamroll from Leon, but Acolyte scaring him away at the last second.
Mate, I told you, I rate this guy as the best carry top laner in Europe and shows it in these clutch situations over and over. No way any other Baron laner would have got out of that situation alive. Otherwise, he's gonna get him. He's gonna get him. It's the extended 2v1 for. I mean, it just proves my point, mate. This is the best Baron laner in Europe. If you stick him on a carry champion, he's gonna do just that. And that now means that it is No Team, No Talent who have got the edge over this Rift Herald take. And once again, the name of the game these last two games have been whoever controls those early neutral objectives generally tends to control the game. And that is the way it is looking here for No Team, No Talent.
Looks like one of those, Scoundrel. You're right, I think, with the 3.5k now blossoming into a 4.5k gold lead. It feels like they are starting to form that gap that's going to have them running away with it. And the overextension from Friend, in a way, stepping in so aggressively there to try and get onto Andre. I thought for a second they might turn it back around, but was looked after by his support. And unfortunately, with a couple of members of Kaizo running through a tower, we all know how that one is going to end. And then Leon, just the magic that we saw.
Yeah, he got helped out a little bit by the barrel, actually, from Acolyte there. And I think on the point of the overextension from Team Queso, they saw the opportunity to take out the jungler. You know, that's what I think we need to remember. They saw the opportunity to take out the jungler, which is a key objective when trying to go for a Rift Herald fight. But unfortunately, they didn't have that tier 1 down in the top. They had nowhere to go once they'd boxed themselves into the blue side jungle. And Team Queso, No Team, No Talent were there to pounce, as you said, with the Ezreal able to just arcane shift over the wall and get straight into the fight. It was a good response from No Team, No Talent to pick up that Rift Herald as well.
Hot lane, Leon going in so aggressive as Thorin trying to interrupt the back, and he did just that, but now he's getting himself caught out, overextended, tried to bite off a bit more than he can chew. Surely can't get the finish off. No. Oh, Friend's ultimate coming across. Goes in for the Q! The arcade shift forward, landing into a Mystic shot. Beautiful. Elsewhere, you've got Ibu going down. Doom finishing that one off, and now he's on the wrong side of danger. Manages to get himself away. The stun coming through. A double kill for the Twisted Fate. They're just rolling through them at this point, it feels like, it's Scoundrel. Another 3 kills picked up for the side of No Team, No Talent.
It's disaster for Queso. That'll be the Hextech belt into the stun, but no one to follow off on it, unfortunately, for Snitch. But they are looking to just drop that Herald mid and pick up the mid lane tier 1. A little early. The dragon hasn't spawned yet, but you take mid lane tier 1 whenever you can get it. And that'll be an easy pickup now for No Team, No Talent as they reset and look to get back on the map to potentially fight this dragon.
Oh, what a scrap it's been. I mean, Kaizo, bless them. Almost just trying to hold on against the over-aggression coming out of No Team, No Talent. Look at this. Leon trying to get in here when one was recalling in the bush. Don't think he knew, but he was hell-bent on bringing the Ahri down, so much so that he went back in for the second attempt. But it's what follows next that was really beautiful at Scoundrel.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're going to miss this. It was a really nicely placed Mystic shot. We have a fight.
I mean, Doom's just like, yeah, tower, what's that? Stepping under, killing 1, killing 2. Finds himself going down eventually, and sure, a little bit of poke damage coming through. No Team, No Talent walking away, slightly bruised and battered. But again, another 2 kills, another favorable fight, and yet another blossoming of that gold lead now, sitting at 6,500 gold.
Yeah, they can't take the dragon, though, because unfortunately Andre's still alive. Can't risk a smite war on that. But you take these 2-for-1 little punches every single time if you're No Team, No Talent. And as I said before, they have that scaling element on their squad. Of course, you have the Lulu Kai'Sa, very strong scaling bot lane. But realistically, you have a Fiora, you have a Twisted Fate, and an Ezreal, all of whom are going to love this accelerated early game. And some big item spikes have been picked up now as well. The Rod of Ages into Lich Bane, and we have the Triforce finish up. It's Rod of Ages Janna as well. I don't usually see this outside of solo queue, but Janna does get a lot of utility from pure AP, especially if you're going Font of Life, where every single one of those... Leon, are you trying to 1v5, mate?
I think he really wants to. I mean, Fiora's the one maybe in the late game that can do it at the 10-minute mark. Not so much. Great all coming across from Friend, catches onto a couple. Rui's almost being burnt out by Doom, but Will dash away at the last second. Leon just loves getting himself stuck in the thick of things at Scoundrel. That's as simple as it is.
He absolutely does. And you can see the confidence on this guy. I think that's one of the things that makes him such a good Baron laner. It's that pure confidence of just going for a play that absolutely no one else would, and backing yourself. I think that is a really important part of being a pro player, just backing yourself in a situation. You're good. You guys are the best in Europe. Back yourself in these situations, and Leon always does. Always does. And that's yes, sometimes it goes wrong, but from what we've seen in the Origin series, 80% of the time it goes right. And that's where that confidence is coming from, and just gives him that edge versus a lot of other people in that side of the map.
Here we go. Troll being set up all across this top side of the map by No Team, No Talent. A couple of deep wards placed in, as the focus undoubtedly is going to be towards this Baron. But Team Kaizo ain't quite no pushovers. You can see a good few wards of their own scattered throughout. One in the pit, one in the tri-bush, one out towards red single dot bush as well. So they are making sure they've at least got an idea of what's going on, even if they know this is a very difficult fight back that they've got on their hands. That gold lead now still sitting at 6,500 gold, and it has expanded as time has gone by. Doesn't mean a comeback is impossible.
It's not impossible. You still have a Kai'Sa, still scales really nicely, but I talked about the strength of an Ezreal into this comp. I don't see a good way, barring an excellent ultimate from Acolyte or a good charm coming out from Ruiz, that you actually isolate this Ezreal at this point. I think it's a little too difficult, especially given the item spikes that the Ezreal has got. And that also is a ticking time bomb in the side lane. Leon, no one can really match him in the 1v1 at this point in time.
Or the 1v2, as we probably observed earlier on. Did require a little bit of support coming out of Friend, but the further ahead he gets, the more scary he's going to get. I mean, just look, for example, at the current difference that sits in the top lane. 11,000 gold to 7,000. He's bruising past him right now. It's not even close with how it's starting to shape up. Mid lane, maybe a little bit more balance in the gold difference, and bot lane also not looking too bad, but you can see that that diff definitely exists in the top lane right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's constantly just turning the screw on that side of the map. Perfectly happy to just have that side lane pressure continue, and no one there able to respond to it, especially as he's putting pressure on the side of the map that is the furthest away from Baron. That's the most important thing as well. And that does mean that you can see mid lane prio constantly being fought over here, constantly being pushed in, and they are just threatening the option of Baron right now. And you can see Team Kai'Sa are edgy about it. They're walking up, double warding. You know, they want to get a vision on Baron. They know it's going to be a game-ending objective.
And look who's going off to the bot lane. None other than Leon to go for a split push yet again. But the TP's coming in from the Gragas. They really want to commit to this fight. 5 versus 4. They still lose the first man. And it's Ruiz going down. One of the worst ones that you can lose. They jump through. They clean. They cleave. They decimate the side of Team Kai'Sa. Even in a 5 versus 4. That could be the game ender, because you've still got this bot lane push going on. They'll get a top push on the go, or could turn towards Baron. A wonderful 4 versus 5 coming out for No Team, No Talent, who ironically seem to have a lot of it.
Yeah, as you said, the 4 versus 5 is the writing on the wall here for Team Kai'Sa. If you can't take a huge man advantage and win a team fight with it, I don't think you've got a hope in hell and getting yourself into this game. You can see here now that the Baron should drop down. The inhibitor tower is being knocked on by the Fiora. Leon taking at least a bit of damage down on that side of the map, and with Infernal spawning soon as well, it's going to be a rough one. You can see Ruiz, way too aggressive, was looking for a charm, but immediately caught out and burst by Doom, who was then able to immediately use that stasis to keep himself irrelevant in this team fight beyond that initial piece of damage. And as you can see, resets galore at this point in time. It was just a big overcommit from Ruiz, in my opinion. He was aggressive. He wanted to make the charm happen to try and set something up for his team fight, but he did not have the support behind him. Although I say that, he's an understaffed Infernal Dragon here.
Just a little bit, but you know who's not understaffed? The man in the back line. 1 versus 5, because why the hell not? And it's a Twisted Fate going down. I think he was looking for a timing with the team that just didn't quite come off. Andre stepping forward, but the burst onto the side. Friend is the one plugging away, chasing after the team. Those cooldowns being reset seemingly continually, but they're bolting their way through the front line. Down goes the Gragas. Andre is next, and surely Ibu will follow just after. Burst through. Nothing left on this one. That's going to be an ace coming through for the side of No Team, No Talent, and surely this is the game end.
This is absolutely the game end. No Team, No Talent secure themselves as that best team in Europe. No one's going to catch them at this point in terms of Origin Series standings, I feel. And honestly, you're just seeing a team that has a real shot at making a mark on the world.
I mean, Leon especially, absolute thunderbolt in that top lane, miles ahead of the Gragas as we spoke about, bullied him from very early on, constantly forced the 1v2s. Fantastic game, and the rest of the team held their part really well too.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, Leon does soak highlights quite a lot because of the nature of his player, his play style. But everybody on that team is incredibly talented, and you can see why. And I think realistically, the parts we talked about it right at the start of the series, the parts that was supposed to shine for Team Queso, the top jungle especially, that you're going up into equal, if not better, counterparts on the side of No Team, No Talent. This was the attempt at catching out Doom in the own side jungle, but you could see a great collapse and not much of a response, unfortunately, for Team Queso in that blue side jungle now. You can see Andre was way too low to get involved in the fight, and Acolyte wasn't quite in position. This is Leon in a nutshell, finding these little 1v1s in situations that you would not be able to make it happen for most people, and then even having the audacity to come back in this lane and find that re-kill onto Acolyte just moments later. Really great stuff. Actually, and I think Acolyte made a mistake there, unfortunately. He basic attacked with Drunken Rage whilst Riposte was going on. Had he held it like a half a second longer, probably would have been a different story, but that's what Leon goes for. He hopes that people make mistakes, and at this point, you're just really far ahead if you're Team Queso.
Sorry, pushes his advantage so much. Goes a little bit crazy and rides on them making a mistake whilst you're making a mistake, it feels like, because he was over-aggressive at a few points. But we spoke a bit about that early fight, by the way. Andre, the one being almost burnt down where Friend Arcane shifted forward to try and finish off the kill. The big focus there was what you spoke about in the pre-game that you needed to ride on was the Xin Zhao with the Lulu, but he was burst down because there was no real follow-up. The team got split off the back of it, and you could see almost winding all the way back to that first fight where things really started going wrong for the side of Team Queso.
Yeah, and also some of the other compositional differences started to rear their head as this game progressed as well. The fact that you really just can't deal with the Ezreal. In this fight right here, you'll see why. They immediately take out Twisted Fate. It looks like a good opportunity to go for the engage, but look, no one's touching Friend, outside of a charm, which he did actually manage to stop through killing the Ahri. Who can actually get onto this Ezreal? He's so safe versus this composition. And Friend, more than happy to arcane shift aggressively in any given moment to just set up and continue this fight. I mean, admittedly, they were miles ahead at this point in time, but it's just a compositional difference. And I think a lot of these games were actually won in the draft phase, both Team Queso and No Team, No Talent, especially Blue Side. Blue Side seemed to have the net advantage here. It was 100% Blue Side win ratio in this series.
It absolutely was. I mean, a really good fixture overall, and sadly didn't see that quite come to life for Queso in the way that we were hoping for in that final game. But that's one of those ones that you look at and just say, better luck next time, kids. Either way, as you say, No Team, No Talent establishing themselves as one of the top teams in Group A. I'm going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we've got Group B waiting for you with Riku and Yuko. See you guys soon.